room, yeah, in the lab room. Hey, that's my man Louie T. Yeah, in the lab room, yeah, in the lab room, yeah, in the lab room. You can check for all 32 teams. Yeah, in the lab room, yeah, in the lab room.
Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie T? Welcome to Sunday Night Football Overtime. Rams, Browns. Really good football game, man. I was actually quite impressed with the Browns, especially considering that their entire secondary was out in this game and they were playing with backups. And that shows you the depth that this team has and the talent that they possess. And I'm not saying that they were elite on the back end tonight, but the fact that they were able to hold, and I still don't think that this Rams offense is where it ultimately will be, say 5 weeks from now. I think they're still kind of figuring some things out. But nonetheless, this is a Browns defense that I thought showed out tonight. Gave themselves an opportunity. I thought the offense was what I actually lost them the football game tonight, let them down in some key spots. Give me 1 second. I'm in one of those moods tonight, man. Had to go grab me a glass of wine. So, in any event, let me pick up where I left off. I really felt like the Rams defensively did what I think is going to be the kryptonite for this Browns team moving forward this season, and that's they got after the quarterback. Baker Mayfield won't be comfortable behind this offensive line. It's a big part of the reason why I told you that the Browns weren't any better than an 8-8 football team this year. Simply put, they cannot protect against teams that can get after the quarterback. And they've got a couple of teams in their own division that can get after the quarterback, in the Ravens, who they'll see next week, and the Pittsburgh Steelers, who right now are 0-3. And yes, it doesn't look great right now. The outlook is not great for the Pittsburgh Steelers, but they're still going to be a tough ask of this this Cleveland Browns football team. Bottom line is, their offensive line is going to be an issue the entire year. That's something they'll have to clean up in the offseason. They can't take care of that problem now. And it's going to cost them ball games this season. It cost them a game in week 1 versus the Titans, who got after them defensively, forced Baker Mayfield into some mistakes, sacked him for a safety in that game, among other issues. And then it would have reached up and bit them last week against the Jets, who I thought actually did a pretty good job of getting after Mayfield. But the Jets offensively were anemic last week. It was a joke what they were able to put on the football field from an offensive standpoint. And so they were able to take care of business last week just because the Jets didn't have enough. I thought that was a game they could have actually lost had the Jets been at full strength. But that's nor here nor there. You talk about this game tonight, and really where this game was won by the Rams was up front in the trenches. Yes, the Browns actually ran the football really well with Nick Chubb. I love Nick Chubb, man. I think he is a really good back. One of these guys that we'll probably not talk about. Guys won't give him the just due that he deserves over the life of his career, but quietly, he'll be one of these guys rushing for 1,200 yards and putting up some really gaudy numbers in Cleveland. He's a guy that you can lean on in the run game, and they're going to have to lean on him this season if they want to win some football games. They almost rode him to a victory tonight, but again, it just wasn't enough offensively. And again, they highlighted it during the telecast. They talked about Baker Mayfield needing to get the football out of his hands in 2 seconds or less because of the faulty offensive line that he's behind. And when he gets it out of his hands quickly, it's usually a success. When he holds on to it, he's probably running for his life or taking a sack. So that's going to be my overriding theme for this Browns team the entire season is, what can you get out of this offensive line, especially at the tackle positions? Not necessarily on the interior, but at the tackle positions on both sides. What can you get out of these guys, and how good can they be? Can they be good enough to hold up against teams that can actually rush the passer? Aaron Donald is never, ever trust a man with 2 first names. We know what he is, and he wrecked shop a little bit tonight. In typical Aaron Donald fashion. So no need to be ashamed of that. But when you look at it from the Rams' perspective, I feel like the Rams aren't still clicking at maximum capacity. I don't think they're hitting on all cylinders quite yet, but yet they're still winning ball games. I would have expected them to have dropped one of these games by now, and they just simply haven't. And that's the mark of a championship pedigree team. They've been here. They've done that under Sean McVay and Wade Phillips. They understand what they have to do to get a victory. It's not always going to be pretty, but they know how to get the gritty dubs. They did it last week, even though that was a compromised Saints team when Drew Brees went down. Still had to find a way to go out and win that ball game, and they did. Week 1, it was not pretty by any stretch of the imagination on the road. They showed you Jared Goff's numbers on the road, 11-10, now 12-10 on the road career-wise as a starter. But he went on the road week 1 against Carolina, hostile environment. Wasn't the prettiest performance by the Rams, but they found a way to get the victory. And then now here, hostile environment. They being Sunday Night Football, haven't been to Cleveland in 11 years, okay? You knew the crowd was going to be raucous. They were going to be rocking. They won last week, so they feel good about themselves. They're at 1-1. They feel like this is a spot where they need to show the world what they're capable of. And the Rams were able to subdue the crowd, get after Baker Mayfield, and do enough offensively and defensively, collectively as a unit, because even special teams wasn't the greatest for them. They missed a field goal in this football game. They did it as a team. It wasn't the cleanest performance by the Rams, but yet again, they get the victory, and that's the mark of a good football team. When you don't have your fastball, you got to use the changeup and the curve and the off-speed pitches to get outs. You find a way to still get the job done, and that's what they did. Their fastball wasn't hitting at 97 tonight, all right? That was only hitting at 92, and the Browns were all over it, all right? They picked Goff off twice and could have had another 1 or 2 interceptions in this game. They were all over him, all right? They harassed him. They molested him. They got to him. They forced him into some mistakes. They didn't give up a bunch of yards on the ground to Todd Gurley. To me, everyone came into the season talking about how good and explosive this Browns offense is going to be. Right now, the strength of the Browns football team is their defense, and the Rams did enough to come out victorious between Cooper Kupp and the three-headed monster at receiver that they have between Cooper Kupp, Brandon Cooks, and Robert Woods. They all got it done collectively. No one man necessarily destroyed the Browns tonight, but collectively as a group, they really were effective tonight, especially in the play-action game, giving Goff the time he needed to look down the field and find guys and get those chunk plays that the Rams are accustomed to getting. And so, again, they weren't able to cap off every drive with the touchdown. Credit that Browns defense, but they were able to do enough in this football game to secure the victory 20-13, run their record to 3-0 on the season. And like I said at the top of this program, this is a team that understands how to win. And when you figure it out and you know the formula, these types of close ball games become easier to pull out. And they've done it all season long. None of their games have been necessarily blowouts. Last week was probably as comfortable a game as they've had in the fourth quarter, but even that wasn't a runaway game necessarily. They were close in that game in the fourth quarter, and then they pulled away late. Week 1, close affair on the road. Week 3, close affair on the road, but they found a way to win those games. And right now, along with the San Francisco 49ers, the Los Angeles Rams sit atop the NFC West at 3-0. Meanwhile, you look at the Browns, as I mentioned before, their offensive line, specifically the tackles, going to be an issue for me all season long. It was one of the reasons why I thought this team could struggle. And they have struggled in both of their home games. Ironically, the one game on the road, again, be it against a very compromised Jets football team, nonetheless, you still got to go out and get the job done, and they did. Both home games, they've looked sluggish at times. They've looked lackluster, and they've been unable to protect Baker Mayfield in both of their home contests this season, and that really was the difference in the ball game. Baker Mayfield was running for his life tonight, and for good reason. Again, these are the Rams. You're talking about one of the most dynamic, if not the most dynamic pass rush in all of football. Obviously, you're talking about never, ever trust a man with 2 first names, Aaron Donald. You start with him, and it's just like talking about Khalil Mack. You start with that guy, or you talk about Von Miller, you start with that guy, or J.J. Watt, you start with that guy, and then you kind of work your way down the rest of the guys that complement him. Well, no one else has a better complement of pass rushers around him than Aaron Donald when you're talking about the elite guys in this league. You look at Dante Fowler Jr., he was wrecking shop tonight. And I thought that Clay Matthews was done. When he got to Los Angeles this offseason, I said, oh, who cares about Clay Matthews? He didn't have shit left anyway. He was done 2 years ago in Green Bay. Well, maybe he was done 2 years ago in Green Bay. But the Clay Matthews that they're just telling, hey, bro, don't worry about dropping into coverage or any of that, playing inside linebacker or any of that bullshit Green Bay had you doing. We just want you to rush the passer and stop the run a little bit. Can you do that for us? He's like, oh, man, I could do that. Shit, I could do that in my sleep. Well, he's still got a little bit of juice left. He's still got a little bit of gas in the tank. And he was effective tonight as well to go along with AD and Dante Fowler Jr. They've got a formidable pass rush in Los Angeles with those guys up front. And they got after Baker Mayfield tonight. They made him uncomfortable. And your end result was Baker Mayfield just simply not being able to make some critical plays for this football team when they needed it. And this isn't all on, and I told you that this is a young football team. That includes the coaching staff. And I said, you're going to run into some issues because you're a young football team. These are the things that happen when you're a young football team. You run into some issues that you only can iron out through experience. See, these Rams that you played tonight, they had some growing pains in their first year under Sean McVay. They had some games that they could have won and would have won later on down the line had they been more experienced. Like now, instead, they lost those games in their first year, just like the playoff game in 2017 with McVay that first year. They lost that playoff game. Why? Because against the Falcons. Why? Because they were young and dumb and they didn't know any better. You grow, you have these experiences, you become battle-tested, and then you are able to overcome adversity and find ways to win games instead of ways to lose games. And the Browns this season are going to win their fair share, but they're going to lose games because of being a young team. And that also means a coaching staff. I'm going to give him the benefit. I'll be giving him the benefit. I'm going to give head coach Freddie Kitchens the benefit on that 4th and 9. I'm going to assume he thought it was 3rd and 9. He got confused by the whole non-pass interference call and the illegal procedure penalty that was called on them. He thought it was still 2nd down, and so after they ran the next play, instead of it being 3rd and 9, it was 4th and 9 because there weren't offsetting penalties. He thought it was. I'm going to assume he thought it was 3rd and 9 because I know Freddie Kitchens isn't dumb enough to think he's running for a 1st down and going to catch the Rams napping on 4th and 9 with a damn draw. So I'm going to assume I'm going to give him the benefit because he's a first-year coach, all right? First-year head coach, I'm going to give him the benefit and assume he thought it was 3rd and 9. And he was looking to pick up 3, 4, 5 yards, get into a 4th and manageable because he knew he was going for it. I'm going to assume that was the case. Until he tells me otherwise at the press conference and says, no, I thought it was a good call, thought we could catch them napping. And then once he tells me that, then I'll call him a dumbass. But until then, I'm going to assume he thought it was 3rd down. He got a little confused and didn't know it was 4th down, thought it was 3rd down, ran a draw thinking he was going to get to call another play and then realized, oh, damn, that was 4th down. That's what I'm going to assume because I'm a nice guy, all right? Because I'm a nice guy. So I'm going to assume that. And so it's not just on the players. The coaches let the players down as well. And so this was a total team loss by the Browns. You could blame the offense, the defense you feel like held up their end of the bargain. You hold the Rams to 20 points. You feel like you should probably win that football game. And I would agree with that, especially if you're at home as the Browns were in this football game. But you had a crucial situation where your punter shanks one out of bounds, essentially, got a chance to pin the Rams deep in their own territory, make them start inside their own 5. Make them start inside their own 10. Instead, they're out past the 15-yard line, out near the damn 20, because he didn't kick the football any damn where. Then you got your coach running a draw on 4th and 9. It's one of those situations where you're just like, hey, man, you could look at it from a number of different ways. And bottom line is, the Browns didn't do enough tonight to win. They didn't do enough on any side of the ball. Like I said, the defense was good enough, but they didn't make enough plays. Yep, the 2 interceptions were great. It turned the Rams over, took away scoring opportunities. Hell, I think they even created a fumble as well. I don't even recall if they landed on that fumble or not. Bottom line is the defense gave them enough opportunities, but they still gave up some touchdowns. Every time the Browns gave the defense a chance to protect a lead, all right? Whether it was 10-6, whether it was 13-10, what was the score? The second time they took the lead, I think the score was, it was 3-3. Then it was 6-3. Yeah, it was 6-3. Browns were leading at half. As a matter of fact, they got a field goal I think right before the half, and then they couldn't protect that lead. They gave up the touchdown to start the third quarter. That made it 10-6. Then the Browns go out down and they answer and they take the lead 13-10. They gave their defense a chance to do what we like to call in baseball a shutdown inning, where you go out, you protect the lead after your offense gave you the lead. Now you need to go and protect that lead. Instead, the defense gave up a touchdown and let the Rams take the lead 17-13, one that they would not relinquish the rest of the night. So the defense had opportunities to stand up and make, and you on a night where you saw the offense probably wasn't going to score a ton of points, you probably needed to make maybe 13. You had to make that ride, or maybe 16 might have been enough to get it done tonight. But these are the types of games where if you feel like you're an elite unit on the defensive side, you got to prove it by holding down an elite offense to less than 20 points. But it's a tough ask against this Rams unit that features so many really good football players and a head coach that is definitely a genius in Sean McVay. So with that being said, Rams get the victory. I want to open up. I'm going to get to some comments. We're going to open up the phone lines here in a second. But first, before we do, I want to send this to you. What's going on, fam? It's your man Louie T here. Check this out. If you play daily fantasy on FanDuel or DraftKings, make sure you sign up to DraftDime.com. They offer some of the best projections in the industry, along with one of the most advanced lineup optimization tools to not only get you in the game, but to help you dominate. They also offer a fantasy football draft kit to help you dominate your buddies during your season-long leagues. So, what are you waiting on? It's never too late to get in the game. Get over to DraftDime.com and sign up. And remember to use the coupon code Louie. That's Louie, Louie, for 10% off. The link is in the description. And don't forget to tell them that me, your man Louie T, sent you. And we're back. So, now we're going to open up the phone lines, and I'm going to read some comments. So let's do that now. Atlas says, is it getting to the point where we should consider this just another Browns team? I never was on the bandwagon. I told you guys from the jump, I thought 8-8 was the best they were going to do this year. People thought I was crazy. Everyone was drinking I told you, don't drink the Browns brews. And I told you that. I said, don't drink the Browns brews, man. Nobody listened to me. And so, and it's early still. They may ultimately run off 7 of their next 8 games. And next thing you look up and the Browns are one of the hottest teams in the league. And we're like, man, this Browns team, because they got the talent. This isn't a talent issue. They're just young. And young teams make mistakes. In any event, got somebody on the phones. Going to go ahead and take the call. You're on live with your man, Louie T. Who am I speaking with?
What up, Lou? It's Ree.
What up, Ree?
Do you want me to stick to this game? Because I didn't watch it. I wanted to talk to you about my game. Is that okay?
Absolutely want you to stick to this game. Now, I am going to do a lockdown coverage because I watched the game already. So, I know there's a lot to get to from that game. We'll talk about that. We can talk about that during lockdown coverage, but we want to definitely stick to this game. So if you didn't watch this game, we'll come back around. Matter of fact, when I do that lockdown coverage, just for you, I'll open up the phone lines and allow you to.
All right, man.
All right?
All right, take it easy.
Yep. So, phone lines are open. Back to the comment section. Like I said, I wasn't high on the Browns like everyone else was. or many of you were. Some of you thought that the Browns were a facade. And again, until you prove it in this league, I can't just give you something because you show up with talent. We've seen talented teams fail in the past. All right, so I wasn't jumping on this Browns bandwagon. I had to see it with my own two eyes. There's a lot of talent on this team, and if they continue to grow together, I think this is a team that could be dangerous in the future. But this season, here in 2019, I don't see the Browns, again, being better than 8-8. I just think they're going to have their pitfalls. They're going to win some games that you don't expect them to win. They're going to be in ball games, and they're going to be close. Like tonight, for instance. That was a good Rams team that they went toe-to-toe with. They're just not there yet. And maybe a year or two from now, they will be there, and they'll be able to win this game instead of just being close. There are no moral victories. These are the types of games you need to learn from, but you want to win these games, and they're just not there yet. And maybe they'll grow to the point where they're there this season, and it's just later on in the season. But right now, as we sit here in week 3, they're not ready for these types of contests to win. Atlas also says, what do you make of Baker's sophomore year at this point? Is it closer to what he is, or was it last year? So with Baker, he's going to grow. He's got a lot of new targets. And again, the offensive line isn't the greatest. All right. So there are adjustments to be made. And remember, there was no tape on Baker when he stepped into the lineup last year. All right. Baker stepped in. It changed the dynamics of this Browns football team as we knew it. And as teams around the league knew it. They didn't have film on Baker. He's a guy that can extend plays and make it off schedule. And so teams had to adjust. Things had to kind of be set up where you look, hey, look, 6 can get out of the pocket. He can extend. He can make plays. We've got to stay plastered to our guys. So now the book is out. Hey, get to Baker Mayfield. Get him off schedule. Get to his receivers. Knock them off their routes. That sort of thing. And right now, the thing that you want to do against the Browns is attack those tackles. Attack those tackles, but don't let Baker out of the pocket. If you can at all help letting him out of the pocket. We got a call. Going to go ahead and take it. You're on live with your man, Louie T. Who am I speaking with?
What's going on, Lou? It's JP.
What's up, JP?
What's going on, man? One thing I want to... honestly, I'm sorry. I'm at a loss for words right now. I didn't get to watch a whole lot of football today. I was out, but I just wanted to ask you a thing about the Browns in tonight's game.
Mm-hmm.
I have to admit, it's too early to write off the Browns. I know people are writing them off, but I'm not writing off the Browns.
No, you shouldn't write. If you believed in the Browns prior to the season, you thought they were a 10, 11, 12 win team, no, you shouldn't be writing them. I never did. I thought they were an 8-8 team at best. So this is what I expected. What I'm seeing from them is what I expected. So I'm not going to jump off of a ledge because this is what I expected from them. Now, if you thought they were going to win 10, 11, 12 games, then you should still be thinking this is because it is a really talented football team. And if they can find a way to put it together sooner rather than later in 2019, they can still be a 10, 11, 12 win team. Probably not 12, closer to 10, but 10 might be able to get them in the AFC when it's all said and done. But again, it's going to take time. You don't just put talent together and expect it to mesh right away. It takes time for guys to understand what the guy next to him is going to do and how he's going to do it. And I think even with the coaching staff, we saw Freddie Kitchens run a draw on 4th and 9 tonight. Like, what are you doing? Like, they're young across the board, even at that coaching position. So there's a lot with this Browns team that it's going to get better over time, but it's not going to happen overnight.
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, you might be right about the Browns' offensive line not being good and being an Achilles heel for this team. I watched them the first couple of games. I watched the first couple of games they played. Mayfield was running for his life most of the time. I mean, especially the left side of their line. I mean, they got to get that fixed. I'm literally watching the highlights right now.
Yeah, and that was the problem I had, along with their youth and inexperience. I thought that one of the biggest problems would be that offensive line. I said that from the jump. And you're seeing it come full circle right now. And this isn't something that they can fix in season. They're stuck with the offensive line that they have. There aren't guys walking the streets right now that can come in and help you improve your offensive line at this point. What you have is what you have. They're stuck with the guys that they have. Their problem was being naive enough to think that it was okay to have Greg Robinson starting for you on your offensive line and some of these other guys that they've thrown out there, and thinking that they were okay with these guys up front. And so they're going to have to pay the price for that. Now, they'll get better maybe next year through the draft and maybe free agency, that sort of thing. They traded away arguably their best offensive lineman to the Giants because they wanted to get stronger on the defensive side of the football with Olivier Vernon, which is fine. I get it. I understand that. But it weakened what was already, to me, one of the weaker positions on their football team, which was their offensive line. So it is what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Coupled with that, I mean, this Browns, about the offensive line, yeah, you can go out and you can acquire guys, you can trade, but, trades aren't going to happen until, the deadline, so they're just going to have to ride it out. And the thing you said about the Browns being young and Baker Mayfield being young and Odell Beckham Jr., I think he's in his late 20s, somewhere around there, and Jarvis Landry also in his late 20s. This is a young Browns team that I just don't believe. I still think the Browns are going to be good. I just don't believe they're ready to win right now.
Yeah.
Michael Jordan once said, before you can win, you must first learn how to lose. Mm-hmm. And that's what the Browns need to do. They need to get their growing pains aside before they start winning. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, you're right. But if anybody knows how to lose, it's the Browns. Now,
yeah.
The difference is this coordination of the Browns. They don't know how to lose as a collective unit. They're going to learn how to find a way to win some of these close games. And it's going to happen through the course of this season. They're going to find a way to win some games we don't expect them to win. But again, they're going to also lose some games that we thought they were going to win, a la the Tennessee game in week 1. And there are more games on the schedule down the line that they're probably going to fall short in that we think they should win. And at the end of the day, it's a talented football team. They need to learn each other. They need to learn what the coaches are expecting from them and vice versa. The coach needs to understand what players' strengths are, weaknesses are, what positions to put them in to succeed, that sort of thing. And as they all kind of come together and it all starts to really flow, that's when you'll start to see this team play at their maximum capacity. But right now, I think they're going to struggle at times. And you're going to see a team that's young and inexperienced and trying to learn how to figure things out.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I have to admit, though, what did help the Browns in this case was the fact that they didn't have Greedy or Denzel Ward starting in this game, so that kind of hurt them a little bit on defense.
Yep.
And I'm literally watching through the highlights right now. Mayfield it just baffles me that Mayfield had to make the weird ass throws that he was making, and the fact that his offensive line didn't really do much of a job tonight. So, and there's that.
Yep.
But anyway, like you said, it's going to take time. I don't think we should write off the Browns yet. I watched the PTI show with Tony Kornheiser and Michael Wilbon, and after the first game of the season, Wilbon was all over the Browns. He can't stand the Browns. He can't stand anybody. He's the old crabby man, but he was just egging. He was talking about how Browns did all the talking and running their mouths all off season. They were going to be the new Chiefs or the new Rams, and then he just let them have it after they got embarrassed by Tennessee. But yeah, that's just. You can't really do nothing about that. But you know what? I still think this Browns team is going to be good.
And we'll see, man. We'll definitely see. It's early, and I don't like to start making hard, steadfast assumptions about teams until after the first quarter of the season. Next week will mark week 4, and that will be the first quarter of the season. We'll hit the quarter polls, and at that point, that's when I start making my steadfast predictions on, okay, that team's not good, that team's not good, that team's really good, that team's going to be competitive and compete for a playoff spot. you'll start to be able to separate teams from the pack and realize which teams aren't going anywhere this season. That's how I assess things. And teams can get hot. We've seen it in the past. The Texans started off 0-3 last year, won 9 games straight. Teams can get hot. It happens, but those are rare. Generally, after the 4th game of the season, you know who's good and who's not. So we'll find out.
Yeah, exactly. We still have a whole court. We still have a whole season, a lot of football left.
Yep, absolutely. Yep. Hey, JP, man, thanks a lot, man.
Hey, no problem, bro.
Yep. So, back to the comments. Atlas asks, was Baker Mayfield's rookie season, is that more to his true form or what we're seeing now? I think it's somewhere in the middle. And I think the height of where he will ultimately be, his apex, he's not even close to scratching the surface. This guy's really talented. Baker Mayfield was really talented. I felt like he was overconsumed with being a leader this offseason, telling guys what they should and shouldn't do. And, you know, I didn't really like that. I didn't like the whole Duke Johnson situation. And I thought he assumed the leadership role just a tad bit too soon. You know, and not even, you know, I take that back. Let me walk that back because I don't think he assumed leadership too soon. I think he stepped over his boundaries too soon. I think it was good for him to assume because as a quarterback, you have to be the leader of the football team. That's not optional. Even if you're not vocal and you just lead by example, whatever the case may be, you have to be a leader if you're the quarterback. But you also have to walk a fine line. And he came in as a young guy and just acted as if he was an 8-year vet and that he had the ability to just speak on anybody's situation in the locker room. And he was wrong. And so I felt like he was overconsumed with proving to everyone around him, the coaching staff, the players, that I'm the guy, I'm the leader, let me take charge, that sort of thing. He just needs to go out and play football. I think he'll be fine. This offensive line is probably more of an issue than anything that I just said. If he gets more protection, I think he can rip it with the best of them and get the job done. So I really feel like he'll never really be comfortable this year with the offensive line that he's behind. That's probably the closest you'll get to the truth of the matter. And so I think last year it was this magic carpet ride, even though it was only 7-8-1. You know, it was a magic carpet ride nonetheless, because from where they had come and what they had seen at the quarterback position, he was a breath of fresh air. He was doing some things that we hadn't seen Browns quarterbacks do in quite some time. Like I said, league has film now. They're a little bit more comfortable with what Baker Mayfield's strengths and weaknesses are. Bottom line is, to answer your question, I think it's somewhere in between right now. But if he's at his best, he's more like the quarterback we saw last year than the guy we see. I don't think what we've seen from him this year, the interceptions, the rush throws, him running for his life, I don't think that's indicative of who he's ultimately going to be in this league. So I think it's closer to last year, the Baker Mayfield that we saw, than the one we're looking at right now. Big Blues Rising says, too many penalties committed by the Browns. Also, Baker Mayfield holds on to the ball too long. Because he's going to hold on to the ball. Naturally, he is, you heard him, Brett Favre's his favorite player. Brett Favre used to hold on to the football an awful long time because guys like Brett Favre and Baker Mayfield and Aaron Rodgers, they never think the play is dead. Russell Wilson is another guy you can throw into that conversation. They want to make plays. Dak Prescott is morphing into one of those guys. Carson Wentz, same thing. Holding on to the ball a little bit longer because they can extend and make something happen off schedule. And if you can do that in this league, you're going to give your team a chance to make bigger plays. And so Baker's always going to hold on to the football a tick longer than maybe he should. But you got to take the good with the bad with that because he's going to make plays. All right, yep, he's going to make some boneheaded decisions and he's going to take some sacks and he may ultimately fumble at times. But he's going to make some plays. And you got to take the good with the bad when you're talking about Baker Mayfield. 32J Locke says, total mistake to hire Freddie. Fire him. Nah, can't do that after 3 weeks. Although the 4th and 9, little sketchy. Again, I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt. And I'm going to just assume he thought it was 3rd down and 9. Even and if that is in fact the case, that probably is worse than him knowing it was 4th and 9 and running the draw. Because as a head coach, if you don't know down and distance, then you're in that J.R. Smith territory of not knowing how much time is left on the clock and knowing your situation. Like, that's poor game management. So I'd actually prefer him to say, nope, thought the Rams were in a look that would allow us to run the draw and pick up the yardage, rather than him saying, I actually thought it was 3rd and 9 and not 4th and 9. So I'm actually giving him the benefit, but it actually wouldn't benefit him to admit that he didn't know what down and distance it was. So I take that back. He's probably better off saying, nope, I thought we could catch them in an obvious passing situation, in a soft box, a soft front that we could run on and potentially sneak them and get the first down. I would prefer him to say that, and even though that's probably not the case, but in any event. Moving right along, Derek B says, worst play calling I've ever seen. 1st and goal at the 5. He says 2 timeouts, 43 seconds. You never run the ball. If they score and the Rams have a timeout with 35 seconds for a game-winning field goal. I didn't necessarily have a problem with the usage of the clock. I had a problem with the play calling, however. I am with you, especially with the night Bradley Chubb had on the ground. I thought that they could have run it with all 3 of their timeouts. Run was definitely... Hell, you ran on 4th and 9. Shit, why not run it on 1st and 10 from the Rams' 7-yard line or wherever the hell they were at that time of the game? I'm with you. Didn't necessarily love the decision-making down there, but, I mean, it is what it is. It's easy to second-guess in hindsight, but I'm with you. As I watched it initially, I'm thinking, you got all 3 timeouts at your disposal. Every play call in the book is available right now, and with Chubb having the type of night, I thought he had a really good night rushing the football. Why not run him once? You got timeouts. You can do whatever you like. You can do whatever you like. Yeah, they just decided to throw it 4 times. And it is what it is. JP says, you might be right about the Browns' offensive line being a weakness. Until that's fixed, Mayfield is going to be running for his life all season, which is what he talked about on the phone lines. Going back and going through, and Larry G's the best says, it's just terrible play calling on the Browns. And I think everybody's still talking about that 4th and 9, and I agree with them wholeheartedly. You can't do that. I mean, you're in a spot right there with a chance to really do damage, and you go with draw there with Jarvis Landry, and shame on you if you step to the old dirty backup. And all of these guys on the offensive side, and you go draw with Chubb on 4th and 9, not 4th and 4, not 4th and 3, 4th and 9. Nah, bro, that's not how we do this around here. That's not how you do it. Let's see. Garrett Buckmaster says, what are you seeing from Goff this year? He doesn't seem like he's the same so far. I think they're a little out of sync. I think they're still ironing out some of the kinks. Again, I hate to be the curmudgeon that keeps bringing up the preseason, and hell, we're 3 games in now. We shouldn't be talking about preseason. But I think it took them a couple of weeks to knock off the rust. And I think this game right here, first of all, Goff doesn't play his best brand of ball on the road. So you should be used to seeing him not his sharpest on the road. You've had 2 out of your 3 games be on the road to start the season off. So I do agree with you, though. I don't think he's been his best. I actually thought he played well tonight, though. Despite the 2 interceptions, I thought he eluded the rush well. I thought he was able to buy time and make some throws. I think he's been really solid, but if you're looking for the 5,000 yards passing, 40 whatever, 30 whatever touchdowns and not as many interceptions, Jared Goff, he's not there yet. This offense isn't there yet. They're not running. This is the thing. They're not running the football effectively enough. Since week 1, when you ran it really well against the Panthers with Malcolm Brown, and then late with Gurley to ice it, you haven't really run the football all that effectively. This Rams offense is predicated on the rushing attack and the run game being effective, which allows you to run the play action fake and get guys wide open. Look, you're still getting guys open in the short to intermediate passing game, but in order to hit those deep balls, like you did last week against the Saints to Brandon Cooks, in order to take those shots down the field, which you really haven't been able to do, you got to be able to run it a little bit more effectively to take those shots and to hit them. And the run game hasn't been all that effective. Now, you've played against some quality defenses in Carolina, New Orleans, and now the Browns. However, you got to run it better. And this is a Rams team that is young up front. You got some injuries. You got some changes. All right, guys left in free agency. Guys are hurt right now. The interior of your offensive line is not what you thought it was going to be coming into the season. So at the end of the day, I think Goff has been solid, but I agree with you. He hasn't been his sharpest to start this season off, but I think he's going to, as this season progresses, he's going to get back to the Jared Goff that you've come to know and love, and the guy that deserved the contract that he was just awarded a couple of weeks ago. Emperor Meach says, "Yo, Lou, when are you dropping the next episode of your podcast?" I've been slipping on the podcast, man. I've been so busy, and I've been doing some things, but podcast is coming, man. I'm out to bang out an episode of the podcast for y'all. Marcus Dixon says, "I think it's pretty simple, but without a good offensive line means you can't use your offensive weapons. Trade away your best lineman. What do you expect?" I'm with you. Everything you said, I've echoed that this offseason and into the season. I talked about trading away your best offensive lineman to the Giants to get a guy that can help you in Olivier Vernon. But, you know, when you trade away guys like that, as if in the only way you're able to trade away a guy like that is if you have confidence that you got guys behind him that can step in and you won't miss a beat. That is not the case in Cleveland. The offensive line depth isn't great. And when I look at that line from top to bottom, I'm not impressed with what I see. You know, Joel Petonio right now, for me, is probably the best you got. And even he struggles at times. And I was always a fan of Joel Petonio at tackle. He's probably a better guard, but he's got to be better at tackle than the guys you have out there right now. But then again, you're going to hurt guard, and he may not be that big of an upgrade at tackle, so you may be hurting two spots and not getting better at either one. So you put yourself in a tough spot, you know, when you trade away one of your better players along the offensive line, and you don't replace that guy. I think that's going to be a point of emphasis in the next offseason, but you're still in 2019, and you got to figure out a way to do. And I think what the Browns are going to have to do is they're going to have to adjust what they do offensively. And I'm not saying everything's got to be 3 steps, ball out, and you know, quick hitters, but there's got to be more of an emphasis on those that will loosen up the defense and have them on their heels a bit, and then you'll be able to get the 5-step drops where you take the shots down the field necessarily. So we'll see what happens. Right now, this offensive line simply isn't good enough. And I talked about that going into the season. Captain Spartan 04 says, "At least my Steelers aren't that behind in the division yet with the Browns losing." True. And that is it in terms of the comments. So this was a game that I was really fascinated to see how the Rams would play on the road in a hostile environment. They did what champions do, find a way to win. It doesn't always have to be pretty, but it needs to be gritty and, most importantly, a dub. They did that. And I wanted to see how the Browns would handle this spot. Primetime television at the crib. You were on primetime last week, but you were on the road on Monday night. Short turnaround, short week from Monday night to Sunday night. How are you going to handle this opportunity at the crib and with all of the expectations this season? Here's an opportunity for you to prove that you deserve to be on this platform on Sunday night versus a team that was in the Super Bowl a year ago. Here's your opportunity to prove that you belong. And you didn't prove that you didn't belong, but you proved that you weren't there yet. But this was a quality performance by the Browns, but simply not good enough to get the job done as they fall 20-13 and drop to 1-2 on the season. Meanwhile, the Rams keep pace with the San Francisco 49ers in the NFC West at 3-0. And the Seahawks not that far behind with their first loss of the season at 2-1. So they needed to get this win to stay tied atop that division, and the Rams get the job done. They're now 3-0 on the season. And again, they're still figuring things out themselves in terms of how to get this offense back to the explosive juggernaut that they once were. They're not there yet. Haven't seen that team yet. Even in week 1 where they were able to put up 30 points, that still wasn't a dominant Los Angeles Rams offensive performance. Last week wasn't a dominant Rams performance on the offensive side. In this game wasn't a dominant offensive performance. We're still waiting for that breakout performance from this Rams offensive unit. The defense has been really solid to start this season off. And I think right now, as we continue to push forward, we're going to see this offense get back to what they were, start scoring up over 30 points in this defense. If they can continue to play like they've done early on in the season, it's going to be a really tough Rams team to deal with moving forward. So I am going to get out of here. I do see another comment, so I'm going to read it. It's from my man Ricky L. He says, I wouldn't be surprised if the Browns are on the phone with your Redskins on Tuesday for Trent. That's actually a really good idea. And I would love to take the Browns first round pick because I think even with Trent, they're an 8-8 ball club, regardless of whatever the fact is. But that's a really good point. They need help at tackle. They don't currently have a left tackle on their roster. They do not. They're parading guys out there at left tackle, but they don't currently actually have an NFL caliber starting left tackle on their roster. Trent Williams would upgrade that immediately, and I would love to take the Browns' first round pick off their hands. Would love to do that right now. I'd love to take a third and a first. He's all yours. Pick up the phone, make the call, see what Bruce Allen is thinking, and see if you can't coax him into moving on from Trent, because Trent doesn't want to be in Washington. He'd be a perfect fit for this Browns football team, and it give them a fighting chance in 2019, because behind this offensive line, you're not going to have the best chance to win every single week. And so, Cats fan says, hate the Giants, but I guess the Giants did not mess up. Warned all Redskins fans when they were laughing at the pick. Jones was great. Just one game, not saying, just saying. And I think the last sentence there sums it up. Jones was great. He was great in the preseason. He was great in this game. But it's one game. We've seen guys have hellacious rookie seasons. In the case of a Robert Griffin III, for instance, and turn out to be a bust. We've seen guys have some really good games early in their careers, like a Ryan Leaf, turn out to be a bust. I'm not saying, as you said, just saying, I don't want to run with this, but right now, all the evidence points to Danny Dimes, as they call him in New York, Danny Dimes being the truth, being a real deal, and all of us being wrong with egg on our face. We'll have a chance to talk about all of that and then some, but I can tell you what, I watched the game live. That guy's impressive. They should have lost. The Bucs kicker missed 2 extra points and a field goal, but he was impressive. Game on the line. He took it right down the field, scored a touchdown. They were down 18 in that game, and he brought them back. Shit, man. He looked good. Anyway, I'm your man, Louie T, signing off. Remember, if it's not your man T, it's not the best NFL coverage it could be. We're going to do this again tomorrow. And for you Redskins fans out there, God damn it, we need it. We need it. Hopefully we can get it. Hopefully this time tomorrow, boy, we talking about the Redskins getting off the schneid and getting their first win of the season. If we don't, we'll be talking about the Redskins season going down the drains and where we need to, I guess, end up. Because after looking at the Giants play, that shouldn't... First of all, it was never a guaranteed victory. For those of you out there delusional enough to think that the Redskins can circle teams on the calendar and expect victories, we're not good. Other teams, and I've said this in the past, I've said it in past years, I've said it this year. Other teams look at the Redskins as food. So the Giants look good today with Daniel Jones, Danny Dimes in the game. We got to get this one tomorrow. So we'll be back tomorrow. Bears, Redskins, man, that's a big one. But until then, I'm your man Louie T, signing off. I thank you guys for joining me. Hey, if you haven't already done so, please do me a favor. Check out my LG video. I'm trying to get it to 1,000 views. All right. And so the link is directly in the description. First link you see will be to the LG video. If you haven't already checked out, it's a 3-minute video. Check it out. Leave a comment. I really would appreciate that, man. I need to get to 1,000 views. Straight up. Once I get to 1,000, I will leave you guys alone. But I really want to get that video to 1,000 views. So if you can help your man out, check the video out if you haven't already done so. In any event, I'm your man Louie T, signing off. Cheers. Rams 3-0. Browns dropped to 1-2 with the 13 loss on Sunday Night Football. I will see you guys tomorrow. Have a good one.
Louie T Network.